Blood Magic. Moon River Mates. Part 2. Tavita Night. Carik. He didn't look at Cassie for the rest of the drive. The last thing he wanted was for her to ask any more questions about pack relations. He hated talking about that, and it was so complicated. Even now, everything was so fragile with the pack and with the ones around them. If they were smart, they would all band together and fight the vampires, but most of the other clans didn't want that, and the politics of it all would be worse than dealing with a rogue vampire here and there. Cassie was so curious about things, and he didn't have answers. He wanted to tell her. It was better she not know from him, and if she did figure it all out, at least he could be there to cushion the fall. They pulled up to the house, and Carik could see all the cars from the rest of the pack who'd came to vote for the next alpha. But they were extremely late. "You can't go in for this," he said, and Cassie looked at him confused. "Why?" "Pack business, and you're not a part of the pack," he said simply. "They won't want you there." "So, where the hell am I supposed to go?" she said, shaking her head. "You can hang out in the car, I guess. It will give you time to read your book." He gestured at the little book she'd brought with her. "Once it's over, someone will come out and get you." Before she could object, he opened his door and stepped out of the car. He didn't have time to have a fight with her about his. If he was going to do this, he had to get inside and make his case. As soon as he opened the door, he knew something was off. His brother was sitting on the couch with a beer and smiled at him. The rest of the room was filled with pack members laughing and having a good time. "Hey, big brother," he said with a smile. "I'm glad you could make it." "What's going on here?" Carik said. "What do you mean?" Kieran took a drink. "The vote," Carik snapped. "We still have to vote for Alpha." "Oh, we already did that." "You missed it," he said, standing and walking towards him. "Guess I'm the new Alpha now." He put his hand on his shoulder and leaned in closer. "You really should have waited to take Cassie back to New York." "You planned this," Carik said. Kieran just smiled. "Is that any way to talk to your new alpha?" He turned back to the others. "There are going to be some changes around here. Starting with who we work with." "What has the Order of Fate ever done for us?" "Nothing," a voice said from across the room. "Those fucking witches should mind their own business. They have." "You better not be talking about Cassie," Carik said with edge. Now, brother, Cassie is welcome here for as long as she wants to stay, but there will be no other witches here as long as I'm Alpha, and no alliances with them." "Kieran, there are things at play you don't know about," Carik said. "I could say the same to you," Kieran said before walking past him and through the door. Carik followed him. "Where the hell are you going?" "To tell Cassie the happy news. I'm sure she will be ecstatic to know I'm in charge now." "You son of a bitch, you did this so you could sway Cassie into being with you, didn't you? You could give two shits about the pack," Carik said, shaking his head. "I think you're projecting," Kieran said before opening the car door where Cassie was sitting. "Why the hell are you sitting out here?" "Pack business," Cassie said, glancing at Carik confused. "Oh well, that doesn't matter anymore." He held his hand out. "I'm the Alpha now, and you can go anywhere you want." She pushed his hand away and stepped out of the car before looking at Carik and then back to Kieran. "Fantastic. I'm going To bed, she said before walking past both of them and into the house. Carik couldn't help but laugh. How did that work out? For you? Kieran shrugged. It will work out, always does. Or you could just go back in there and say it was a mistake. And give Alpha to a leader that can really help our people. Kieran snapped his gaze to Carik. You think I can't take care of our people? He shook his head. You have no idea who I am. I was here when you were off with Cassie looking at the future. They had no one and I was here for them. He pointed to the house. Where were you when the packs came calling, trying to take our land? Look, I get it. I wasn't here, but I am now, Carik said. For how long? As long as it takes. Cassie. She watched Carik walk into the house and shook her head. The fact she couldn't be a part of picking an Alpha pissed her off, but she also wasn't sure she wanted to be in the middle of all this. It didn't matter. She had bigger things and this really didn't involve her. Cassie just hoped whatever they decided, she wouldn't have to leave. Not yet. Not before she knew what the hell the Moon River clan was and how her father might fit into it. The book looked as though it was older than her mother would have been if she was still alive. The outside was worn and the pages were yellowed with age. She carefully turned each page, looking through the words for anything that made sense. Cassie noticed some of the pages talking about the different clans or packs as they were called now. This was clearly a wolf thing she'd stumbled into. Then a thought crossed her mind. And she shook her head. There was no way she'd have known if her father was a part of a pack. He had to be like her, someone that was friendly with the pack but not a wolf. Her mother would have told her, right? I mean, she didn't tell her about Sanner not being her father, so anything is possible, but this? The sounded door slamming brought her out of her thoughts. Karen came out first with Carik following behind him. His face was twisted and she knew the Alpha vote hadn't gone well. This was bad for her and them. Cassie couldn't hear the conversation, but the way Carik looked said it all. She glanced through the passenger door at Karen. He locked eyes with her and there was something behind them beyond the normal smart-ass looks he usually gave her. Fear. He looked away before she could consider what was causing it. Cassie was so tired of everything going on here. Maybe this wasn't a safe place for her anymore. Maybe it was time to go back to the city and help Lark directly. At least then she wouldn't be in the middle of a pack issue where they shut her out anyway. She threw open her door and stepped up to the two men. They both looked at her and she raised an eyebrow. Are you done? She snapped. This doesn't concern you, Carik said, looking away. This concerns everyone, Karen said. What is going on? Cassie said, looking from Karen to Carik. She deserves to know, Karen snapped. Know what? Cassie said, but something inside her told her. She already knew. Everything she'd read matched up. Tell her, Carik, Karen almost snarled. If you don't, I will. Cassie slid her gaze from Karen to Carik. He glanced at the ground before locking eyes with her. The sadness was the first thing she noticed and she shook her head. You knew something and you didn't tell me, she almost whispered. You knew this whole time and you didn't bother to tell me. It's not like that, he said. What is it? Cassie snapped. Your father. We knew, Carik said. Knew what? Cassie answered. Say it. Carik hesitated. Your father, he was one of us. He was a shifter. And just like that, everything Cassie thought she knew about herself was gone. Carik. The moment he saw the pain in her eyes, his heart broke. This was the last thing he wanted to do to her, but he didn't want to add more pain. Maybe if she'd found out another way, he wouldn't have had to tell her and none of this would be happening to him. Cassie, I'm sorry. I wanted to protect you, he said. You wanted to protect me? She laughed and shook her head. The more you try to protect me, the more you end up hurting me. I hoped you'd never have to know about any of that. He hesitated. The way it feels to be rejected from a pack is so much worse than any lie. How do you know that would even happen? How do you know? I wouldn't reject a pack first. It's in your nature to belong. It's in all of ours, Carik said, without taking his eyes from her. He's not wrong, Karen added. You stay out of this, Cassie snapped, pointing her finger in his direction. You are just as bad if not worse than he is. Karen threw his hands up in submission. I have the right to know about where I come from. You had no right to take that from me, she said. Her tone changed from angry to just sad, and it broke Carik's heart. He'd only done what he thought was right to protect her. She didn't know how violent that pack was and how they treated outsiders. Even if she was a descendant of a member of the pack, they wouldn't care, and she would feel that deep rejection every shifter dreaded. Cassie, I'm sorry, and you're right. I should have told you about what I knew when you asked. I wouldn't have had to run around looking for information if you'd simply told me what you knew from the beginning. I can tell you now, he said. A part of him didn't want to tell her all the things he knew about the Crimson Pack, but he knew he had to earn her trust back, and this was the best way to do that. Even if he couldn't tell her everything he wanted to. He stopped when something caught his attention to their left. Along the tree line on the other side of the street, something was either standing and watching them, or getting ready to attack. Either way, they were out in the open and anything could get the jump on them. The way Karen moved to the other side of Cassie let him know he'd sensed it too. Something is out there, he said, glancing around them. It hasn't attacked yet, Carik whispered. He glanced back to Cassie. You can't stay out here. It could be something sent to kill you. I can handle myself, she snapped, clearly still mad at him. That's not the point. We're all vulnerable out here, Carik said, keeping his eyes in the direction of the tree line. It knows we see it, Karen said. How do you know? Cassie said after. It's moving, Karen answered. At that moment, the figure stepped out of the shadows with slow, steady movements. He moved in front of Cassie. If anything was there to hurt any of them, it would be her. She was the most valuable thing to the pack and the witches, and whatever was trying to end the world would want her, and the book stopped. The best way to do that was to kill her and silence the book. Cassie gave him a hard shove, but his large frame didn't move. I don't need you to protect me. He ignored her and kept his stance in front of her. The creature crept closer, and he readied himself for a fight. Until he saw him. He was unlike any vampire he'd ever seen. His dark eyes flicked from Carik to Cassie and back to him. Walk away, wolf, the vampire said. Not a chance, Carik snapped back. Kieran stayed behind. Cassie, but Carik could feel him staring at them both. That witch is going to die. You know that, the vampire continued, taking a step towards them. I can take care of myself, asshole, Cassie said with bite. The vampire laughed, but stopped coming any closer. You have power, but it's useless if you don't know how to use it. You aren't a normal vampire, Cassie said. Carik looked at her and then back to the vampire. What are you? The future, he answered. Carik was getting tired of the back and forth. I don't care what you are, get the fuck out of here before I tear you apart. The vampire laughed. You would be dead before you shifted. Maybe, but Kieran would finish the job for me, Carik said. With a slight smile. As much as he hated the way his brother looked at Cassie, he knew it was true. They would both die too. See Cassie make it out of this alive. The vampire looked at Kieran and back to Cassie. Staying. He said. I'm delivering a message this time. Stop meddling and walk away, or die. I don't like when people tell me what to do, Cassie said. Death it is. He smiled and backed up into the shadows. Don't say I didn't warn you. Cassie. What the fuck was that? Karen asked before looking from Cassie to Carik. Cassie didn't say anything. It all felt wrong and weird. She'd never seen a vampire like that before. This was different. She felt the magic coming off of it. The way it looked at her like it knew what she was thinking. The thought made her shiver. How would she be able to beat something like that? She had to learn more about who she was before they used it against her. And everyone she loved was dead. Because of her. Now he was back somehow. Cassie, everything just got a whole lot worse, Carik said. Still watching where Cody was not 30 seconds earlier. I know, she snapped. Everything was a mess. She didn't even have a chance to process finding out she was a fucking wolf. Before all hell broke loose. She had to warn Lark. Cassie pulled her phone from her pocket and sent a quick text to her sister, but she got no answer. Maybe she was busy and would talk to her tomorrow, or worse. Maybe she'd gotten the same visitor. Cassie. We have to call the pack together, Carik said. He crossed his arms and watched Karen. You want me to call the pack together over something we aren't a part of? Karen shook his head. No. They can't fight this alone. They never asked for our help, Karen snapped. No, we didn't, but maybe we need it, Cassie said. This just got a lot worse for everyone who isn't on their side. I don't even know who is or isn't my enemy right now. Karen shifted his gaze to her and waited. You can make a choice to leave all of this behind. You're a wolf. You're one of us. I'm not one of you. I don't know what I am, Cassie said with a sigh. I thought I knew who I was and what the future held. For me, everything changed the moment I found that goddamn book. Do you think it knew what you were? Carik said. Cassie glanced at him and shrugged. I don't know. Every thing she thought was true about herself was changing at a pace she didn't like. First, her father wasn't even her father, and now she was half shifter. What could she do with this? I need to know about my father. Who he was. What his pack is like. I need to, or I'll never figure out who I am. Carik stared at her, but Karen stepped in and put his hand on her shoulder. We can go there if you want, he said while Carik eyed him. You know where they are? Cassie asked. Maybe it was a bad idea. Maybe it was too soon after everything, but she had to. No. Yes. But they won't be happy to see me, he said. You two are not going on your own, Carik said. They won't like seeing you either, Carik. It doesn't matter, Carik answered. What am I missing, here? Cassie glanced between the two men. Something was going on. Just what she needed. More drama. It's not important, Carik said. Get some sleep. We'll need to leave early. Karen. He watched Cassie walk into the house even though she didn't want to before turning to Carik. You know it's going to go bad. Right? You were the one that wanted to take her. I'm not talking about that. I mean you and Risa. Karen raised his eyebrows. That's messy. It doesn't matter, Carik said, and Karen watched him for a moment. His brother wasn't someone who showed their emotions, just like their father. But right now it was written all over his face. He was scared, and it wasn't because he was seeing his ex. It was because Cassie was going to see a part of him he didn't want to show her. If you want to stay, I can take her on my own. They won't bother me, being the alpha and all. You really love rubbing that in my face, don't you? Carik said with a slight smile. I can do it, you know, Karen said. He didn't tell his brother all the things he did to keep this place running. How he helped the others in the town, and when he started seeing vampires popping up, how he created the hunting parties, keeping them at bay. I know, but you shouldn't have to. Says who? You? Karen shook his head. You can't protect everyone. I don't want to. He sighed. As much as you piss me off, you're still my brother. Maybe, but we both have parts to play now. You protecting Cassie when she's connected to the book, he hesitated. And me when she's surrounded by wolves. If she's going to be here, in this, she's going to need to understand pack politics, Carik said. He was right. Neither of them bothered to prepare her for what could be as a wolf. It was a lot to add on to what she was dealing with already. Has she mastered the book? Not completely, Carik said. She needs more time. That's one thing she isn't going to get. Cassie. How far is this place? Cassie wasn't surprised Karen was leaning on the car waiting for her. She was surprised Carik wasn't there too. Where's Carik? Change of plans. I'll take you, Karen said, motioning to the car door. We have a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about? Cassie repeated and got into the car. Like what? Like history, Karen said, closing the car door and putting the key in. You need to know how things work in this world. Awesome, a history lesson, Cassie groaned. It's important. If you do, or say the wrong thing, they won't hesitate to kill you. He sighed at the lack of reaction Cassie gave him. They already will want to kill you because of who your father is, and the other part of you. You mean the witch thing, she smarted off. Yep, he said simply. Moon River Pack is old school. They follow the old ways. That's what Carik said too. So, first thing to know is if you aren't mated, you have no say. Cassie stared at him and shook her head. Wow, starting off With the most misogynist thing ever. He shrugged. I told you, old school. So, I won't be able to ask questions? You will be the lowest there, but lucky you, I'm an alpha. He smiled and Cassie rolled her eyes. They will answer anything you ask. Because of you, Cassie said. That's why you're coming. And Carik isn't. Something like that. Karen didn't elaborate. What about my father? What about him? They have to know what happened to him, she said. I know. He died, but I don't know anything else. I don't know, he answered with a shrug. I watched the road for a while as Karen drove. It was nice not talking about the book or the future for once. While Cody's appearance complicated things, I at least was able to warn my sister. She assured me it would be okay, and I should stay here with the Pax. At least for now. One other thing you should know, Karen said out of the blue. Don't tell them about the book. Why? Cassie had no intention of telling people she barely knew anything about that book anyway. We don't know what side they're on. They might use it against you. You mean used it against you, she corrected. There's power in knowing the future. I know that much. Carik does care about you. He did what he thought was best. Karen shifted. Everyone always does. But they fail to consider what I want. What do you want? He slid his gaze to her and she bit her lip. The way he looked at her with mischief in his eyes made her shift in her seat. To be normal. To just live a life without worrying what's going to happen and how I have to find a way to stop it. So, don't stop it. No one's forcing you to do anything. You mean just stop trying? Cassie shook her head. How could I live with myself if I did? How are you living right now? He slowed the car and took an exit. We're almost there. Are you ready? Cassie laughed slightly. Ready to meet people who never wanted me in the first place? Sure, why the hell not? The small gravel road stretched further than she'd hoped and dirt and grime kicked up behind them as he drove. They were nowhere near New York or even North Carolina. Somehow the time moved faster and they were further into the Appalachian mountains than she'd ever gone before. A small town came into view and the energy became more aggressive than Cassie experienced before. Like it wasn't just her they didn't want around but anyone. Maybe that was part of the reason the town was so far from any kind of civilization. Or maybe she was just nervous. They look as inviting as ever, Karen said as his gaze scanned the few people on the streets. They were glaring at them as they slowly drove through. We have to stop at the Alphas first as a sign of respect. Then what? Then he'll tell us if we can speak to Wayo's family or what's left of them. I have family? It came out before she thought about what that meant. There were people out there who knew she was alive and never wanted anything to do with her. Why would they now? Only a few. Your father had a sister. I'm not sure if she's still here, he said. I didn't know them. I just put it together when you showed up. That night we met in the house? The night I shifted in front of you and told you who I was. Yes. He gave her a sly smile. Cassie remembered it well. She was still learning how to control the book and he'd broken in to see the witch causing the stir. Of course, the moment he shifted from a wolf to human, everything was exposed. Wolves didn't seem to care about nakedness like humans did. Did you know I was part wolf? Cassie wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Yes, but we still don't know if you can shift. Shifting, she forgot all about that little part of being part wolf. Does that happen? What? Wolves who can't shift? She asked. No. We very rarely mate outside our packs or nearby ones. He answered. Sometimes things happen though. There've been a few. They couldn't shift, Cassie finished on her own. It doesn't matter. You won't be staying in the wolf world. Anyway. Once this future thing is fixed, you'll leave and do whatever it is you do. Don't sound so happy about it, she teased. Who said I was happy about it? He stopped the car and glanced at her. Follow my lead. I promise you'll be safe. I'm not worried about me, Cassie said with a slight smirk. Karen was as unpredictable as they came, and everything in her said he'd lose his shit if he thought anything would happen to her. That was a comforting thing at least. He pulled the car further into the trees until a little white house came into view. It was run down and clearly had better days, but the thing that was interesting was the tingle in Cassie's fingers. What is that? She asked, holding her hands in front of her. I've never felt this before. I was afraid of that. It's what happens when you get close to your alpha. In this case, when you get close to Atlas, Karen said, putting the car in park and glancing at her. I don't understand. You've been away from the pack your whole life. It's the wolf waking up, he said. Before she could ask him any questions, he was getting out of the car. She followed suit and he shook his head in her direction. I'm not sitting in this car waiting for you to have a conversa. Tie-in about me, she said with some bite. You promised you would follow my lead. I'm not too good at keeping promises. Cassie smiled and shut the car door. He just sighed and walked towards the little house. As they got closer, she noticed the building may look like it was small, but it was because part of it was back behind and peeking through the hill. The part of the house she could see was just the beginning of it. Karen stopped in front of the screened-in porch and raised his hand to knock when the inner door opened and a tall dark man with the most beautiful emerald eyes walked towards them. How dare you come here after what your pack did, he yelled before giving the screen door and hard shove that made Karen topple back a few feet. Atlas, it's nice to see you too, Karen said. Get out of here before I call everyone here and I let them. Cassie and she couldn't fight the shrinking feeling she had. It was overwhelming and fucking annoying. You know who I am? Cassie forced. Her voice came out. Quieter than she wanted, but at least she was able to speak. Yes, and you don't belong here, he snapped. She does and you know it, Karen said. She's a witch. Even if she has an ounce of her father's blood in her, she's still a witch. Atlas looked at her and curled his lip in disgust. She needs to leave before the wolf activates. Or we'll be forced to reject her. He swung his gaze to Karen. Is that what you want? I want to know where the rest of Weo's family is, Karen said without hesitation. He has no family. They denounced him when he fucked a dirty witch. Atlas glanced at Cassie and made that thing. I can offer you a trade, Karen said. I don't want anything from you or your pack. Besides, you are nothing. Your pack has no alpha, Atlas laughed. I'm the alpha. I guess you didn't have that information. Karen said with a smirk. You tell me where her family is and let us speak to them and I'll owe you. The Great Star Mountain Pack is going to owe us a favor? He smiled at this. Fine, but you must be gone by nightfall. He glanced at Cassie. We don't need to deal with her. Karen. He held Atlas's gaze. This was probably a bad idea. God only knows what he's going to want from Karen and his pack, but if it helped Cassie get some answers, it was worth it. Wayo's mother still lives over by the creek on the other side of town. She can tell you where everyone else went, but that's the only one still here. After his betrayal, his sister couldn't stand the idea of being in the same pack. He stopped and glanced at Cassie. She made it a wolf in the Moon Mountain Pack. That's clear out in Oregon, Karen said. She's been gone a long time, but Moria's still here. Whatever it is you want to know about Wayo, she'll be able to tell you. He cocked his head to the side as he looked at Cassie closer. You do look like him. Let's hope you can get what you need before you have a similar outcome. What outcome? You running me out of here? Cassie said. Karen watched as her stance faltered only a little. She was fighting the wolf. She was fighting the impulse to follow the alpha at all costs. He laughed. You have his attitude, that's for sure. Atlas took a step towards her and locked his green eyes to hers. He stepped closer until he was standing right in front of her, those eyes piercing into her soul. Karen wanted to reach out to help her, but he knew better. This was how she earned respect here. If he interfered, she'd never forgive him. I know who I am, Cassie said. Do you? Atlas sighed. You have no idea who you are, or what you are. That's why we're here, Karen said. I sure hope that's the only reason. Atlas turned and opened the screen door to his little home before looking back to Cassie. Don't bring your troubles here. We don't need them. Troubles? She crossed her arms and kept her eyes on him. I hear things. We are not getting involved in a war. No one asked you to, Karen said, watching the pair. You shouldn't either, Atlas looked right as Karen. Wolves survive. This isn't our fight. It's everyone's fight, Cassie said. And that's the kind of nonsense that got Wayo killed. Atlas stepped into the screened-in porch and turned back to Cassie. And it will get you killed if you're not careful. Cassie. So, I have a grandma. Cassie stared at the dash as she spoke. She knew she'd have some kind of family here, but she didn't know if she was ready to actually meet them. Especially if they were going to reject her. Maybe Carik had a point. She's going to know everything about Wayo, your father. Karen said without looking at her. I know, but I think I rushed into this, she spat out. Cassie, I know this is fast. So much has changed in such a short time, but this is the only time you're going to get. Atlas isn't going to let me bring you back, Karen glanced at her. I know. It's now or never, Cassie said it quietly. All these thoughts went through her head. Would she like her? How would she react to seeing a child her son had with a witch? Could she get through the betrayal her father did to their pack? Cassie, I'll be right here with you, he said. Why? What makes you care so much about what happens to me? Cassie let a laugh escape her lips. If I remember right, you didn't want me around when we first met. You have no idea what I wanted when I first saw you. He let the words hang in the air. Cassie didn't ask any more questions. She had a feeling she wouldn't like the answers. They made their way back through the little town and back. Towards the main road they drove in on. Cassie was happy Karen knew where to go. If she went on her own like she originally planned, then she would be in a lot of trouble in a lot of ways. For once a man seemed to come through for her without asking for anything from her or trying to protect her. Karen pulled up to an older light blue home on the corner just on the other side of the town. Cassie felt her nerves building in her stomach and took a deep breath. This was it. She'd know everything about her father if her grandmother would be willing to talk to her. We'll go together, Karen said. But you can do that talking this time. Cassie glanced at him and back to the house. Her father had lived here once. It was the strangest feeling she'd ever had. Even with all her years of fighting against demons and vampires, this was the hardest thing she'd ever done. At least to this point. Cassie stepped out of the car and walked to the door. Karen stood beside her as she knocked and waited for one of her last living relatives to answer. The door cracked open and she heard a sigh from the little crack before it opened all the way. A short chubby woman opened the door and looked Cassie up and down. I knew this would happen someday, she said. I can't help you. Wait, I just want to know about my father, Cassie said. Without hesitating. I don't care about the wolf stuff. I just want to know about him as a person. The woman watched her for a moment. Her eyes fading from anger to sadness. There's nothing to tell. Please. Just talk to me for a minute and I'll leave and never bother you again, Cassie pled. She had to tell her something. Cassie came so far, and if she just learned one thing about her father, it would be worth it to her. Fine, 1 hour. The woman opened the door further and turned away from her. She walked through the house with Cassie trailing behind. She glanced at everything in the old home. All the pictures on the walls, the ugly couch that had to be from the 1980s, everything. Her father had walked through here once. She felt it in her bones. His energy still lined everything like he'd never left. She wondered if the woman could feel it too. What do you want to know? She said as though she was going through the motions and had no intention of letting her feel any of it. Who was he? Cassie said as she took a seat on the couch. Wayo was quiet. He loved to read and work with books. He spent so much time in the little library we have here. Cassie smiled as she thought about the vision she had with him walking down the halls with books lining every wall. It was his safe space. He didn't much like the way the pack operated, she said. What do you mean? He wanted to change things. To make it less separate, she said. The Alpha family didn't like that. They made it hard for him and Moira. They wanted to unite the packs, Karen said. Yes, but the Alphas didn't. She stopped and glanced through the window. If they hear me say this, they'll expel me from the pack. I won't tell them anything, Cassie said, forcing a smile. After how Atlas had spoken to her, there was no love for him from her. He went to the city to speak with the Order. He wanted change, but needed them to back him in order to make it happen, she said. He was going to make a play for Alpha? Kyrian asked and shook his head. Stupid bastard. Cassie gave him a look and he shrugged. Being an alpha is hard and taking one from another, he said, shaking his head. That's suicide. Unless you have a force behind you, she said. That's where he met my mother, isn't it? I think so. I only met her once, she said. The pack got wind of what he was doing and called a vote. He didn't have a chance. So, he was kicked out of the pack before he died? Cassie asked. She never bothered to ask her mother about her father. Mostly because she thought her and Lark had the same one, but now it made sense. They didn't want Cassie there because she was a threat. Just like her father was so long ago. Yes, but he never stopped trying to come back. At least not until he died, she said. He was a good man. She shook her head. He just wanted to help people. So many died in that war. War? Cassie was confused. Her mother never told her about any war. The one between the packs. I thought that happened generations ago, Cassie said. Looking from the woman to Karen. Not for everyone, Karen said. My pack was torn apart well before the one that she's talking about. Do wolves just go around destroying each other? Cassie said with snark. Pack violence is well known. The wolf will not always stay quiet, the woman, her grandmother said. That was my father's problem, wasn't it? He couldn't stay quiet and they killed him for it. Cassie regretted it the moment she said it. But something about it felt right. There was more to her father's death than just a warlock with jealousy. This was deliberate. This was more than rage. Cassie put her hand on her head as she felt the dizziness come on. Not now. She glanced at Karen right before she felt herself falling. The wet grass slapped her in the face and she opened her eyes. Her whole body was laying in the long grass, but she had no idea where she was. Cassie sighed and pulled herself to her feet before glancing around her. Where did you pull us to? A familiar voice said from behind her and she smiled. At least she wasn't here alone. Carik? She said before looking back at him. He looked like he'd fallen straight out of bed. Were you still sleeping? What? No. I don't know. He rubbed his head. Where are we? I don't know. Cassie let whatever was going on with him go. For now. I was talking to my grandmother about my dad and it doesn't look like the future. Nothing's burning and there aren't any vampires running around. No, but there's magic. I can feel it. Cassie let the draw of the magic guide her and followed it. Carik followed behind her, but stayed far enough back he could shift if he needed to. Most of the time her visions were protective of her, but lately, things were changing. She crested a hill and could see several people not far from them. She hurried closer until she saw him. Sanner was standing in front of her father. His sneer made him look even darker than when he tried to kill her not long ago. Wayo, did you think a mangy mutt like you could take my wife from me? Sanner shook his head, a dark strand of hair falling into his face. He pushed it back and he glanced towards Wayo. Sanner, we both know she won't love you like she does me. We're in love, Wayo said before locking eyes with Cassie. She didn't understand the feelings running through her right away. Confusion that he was looking at her. He saw her, she Knew it, but then there was something more bubbling up in her. Sadness. The sadness of not knowing who he was or who she could have been if she knew him. You can't stop this, Cassie, Wayo said, watching her. This is about more than us. How are you talking to me? She asked. We're blood. Blood speaks to blood with the magic of the book. He smiled slightly. I always knew it would be you. Wait, you knew? She looked back to Sanner, who was standing still, frozen. There's a book in the pack library. It has what you're looking for, he said. I don't even know what I'm looking for, Cassie admitted. I hid it there for you. Cassie, Peggy told me all about who you'd be one day. She knew. You knew Peggy? Cassie felt her whole world spinning. All the people she trusted were keeping everything from her. Peggy. Her mother, even Carik. She glanced behind her where Carik stood watching every thing. He gave her a smile. Peggy saw me coming too, he joked. I loved your mother. She was my everything. She's dead, Cassie said without thinking. She's with you every day, he said with a smile. And so am I. He glanced to Sanner and back to Cassie. You don't want to see this, Cassie. Go. Wait, did the wolves have anything to do with your death? Cassie asked. A part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know, but she had to. She had to know who she could trust. Don't go down that road, kid. Stay with Carik and Karen. They are your future now? He smiled. I love you. And just like that, she was shoved out of her own vision and laying face down on the carpet of her grandmother's house. Cassie, are you okay? Karen rushed to her and pulled her to him. I'm fine, she said. Vision? He said. Yeah, but it's okay. No, it's not. You just told the entire pack you're connected to the book. He glanced at her grandmother. Atlas is not going to let you go now. What do you mean Atlas isn't going to let me go? Cassie felt a bit of panic rise up as she spoke. She came here to get information, not be stuck here because of her visions. Atlas is a man who likes power and you have it, Karen said, helping her to her feet. If you hurry and go now, you might be able to beat him. Moira hurried to the door. It looks clear for now. If I leave, I can't go to the library. She looked at Kirian. I have to. My father left something for me there. We don't have time, Cassie. He pulled her with him as he headed for the door. We have to leave, now. Cassie shook her head. What happens if I stay? What? What happens if I stay here? Cassie stopped at the door and glanced between Karen and Moira. You become part of the pack. You can't do anything without the permission of the Alpha, Moira said. It's not a good life. Not here in this pack. We are not talking about this, Karen said. He grabbed her arm and dragged her to the car. She tried to pull away, but he was stronger. He opened the door and grabbed her shoulders. Why do you make things so difficult? What happened to not telling me what to do? Cassie countered, but the fear behind his eyes caught her off guard. What are you so afraid of? Cassie, get in the car, he said calmly. It was chilling and she finally relented. She pulled the door closed and glanced back to Moira, who was watching the scene play out. Karen got in the car and closed the door, not even looking at Cassie. He pulled away and sped out of the little town. Cassie watched as everything she wanted to know faded away. She'd never know who she is, and it was killing her. I'm sorry, but you can't stay there if they know what you are, Karen said. Why? Do you not realize how much power you have? Karen snickered. Of course you don't. I get it, I'm a witch and now I could be a wolf. So what? Cassie crossed her arms as she watched the sun start to fade. It's more than that, he snapped. Cassie had never seen him like this before, and it was unnerving for her. He was always laughing and joking. The worry on his face, this was different. What aren't you saying? Cassie pushed. He didn't look at her. You are so blind to everything, he said quietly. Karen, I just wanted to know about my family. My mother didn't tell me about him. I only know what I've found here. Cassie's chest stung with her words. Everything she wanted was now back there, and she couldn't go back. Not if she was going to maintain a friendship with Karen and probably Carik too. You told me you'd be there for all of it. That was before you had that vision. He glanced at her. Because you were already connecting to the pack, they all felt it. They all know what you are. How could they know? The only people that know about the book is your pack. That's not true, Karen said with a sigh. It's bigger than just our pack. It could be any wolf chosen to go with the witch. Then why wouldn't they realize I could do it? They know who my mother is and my father. She shook her head. It doesn't make sense. It's complicated. I didn't even know everything until I became the alpha, he said. If there was so much danger, why would you let me come? He locked eyes with her for a moment. Because I know what it's like to want to know who your father is. I wanted to give you that. You didn't expect me to have a vision, Cassie finished. She bit her lip. Cassie could tell him about what she saw in the vision. She could tell him about her father and the book he wanted to her find, but it wouldn't matter. Not now. Will this go away? What? Karen asked. The connection to the pack? He turned to get on the highway. When we get further, yes. So, that's it? I won't be able to tap into that side of me now? Trust me, it's for the best. Karen. He drove without telling her more. If he told her everything he knew, her world would be more than turned upside down. Cassie needed to believe part of her family was who they said they were. He understood what Carik did now better than ever before. He should have kept his mouth shut about her wolf side. Then she'd be back at their home. Even if she wasn't near him, she'd be safe. He glanced at her as she leaned her head back in the seat and closed her eyes. She wasn't going to forgive him for a while, but at least she'd be alive and she would believe she could change things. At least until he could show her who he was. Cassie. She closed her eyes and thought about her father. When she saw him, he looked like everything she hoped he'd be. He was kind and wanted to help her, but she still was confused on how he could take control of a vision like that. The only thing she'd seen so far that could do that was the dark thing that hunted her, and they were a strong user of magic. They had to be a demon. Not her father. She fell deep into a void of darkness. It was nothing like her normal dreams. The air was cold on her skin and her heart beat fast. Where the hell am I? Cassie turned all around her, but nothing was there. In the distance she could hear snarling. The dark ground vibrated under her feet and she lost her balance, falling forward. When she hit the void, it changed to soft grass and dirt. Carik? She glanced around her for him. When she had visions, he was almost always there. The one person she trusted to help her when everything else was falling apart, but no one answered. Weak, a voice snarled in the distance. You think you have so much power, but you are weak. Who are you? She called out as the scene around her shifted into dark trees with moonlight shining through the branches and falling on the grass and dirt. I'm what you're afraid of. You don't even realize how afraid you are. I'm not afraid of anything, she smarted off. A laugh pushed through the air and made her breath catch. You are afraid to fight. Afraid to lose. You're afraid of every thing you are. I'm not, she shouted again. What you afraid of? You're the one still hiding in the shadows. You're not ready for me, the voice mocked. So unprepared. I don't understand what's happening, Cassie admitted. Finally, the voice said. It almost sounded satisfied. That pissed Cassie off a little. This isn't a vision, is it? No, the voice answered. This is something more. Tell me. No, the voice sounded almost angry before she finally saw it. Walking towards her was a beautiful white wolf. Its eyes looked familiar and not at the same time. Its white fur was dotted with a small bit of black on its legs, but the white matched her own hair. How? Cassie managed. You triggered me when you went to your pack. Karen said it would fade. I might, but you called me, loudly. The wolf sat in front of her. I didn't, Cassie said, shaking her head. You're so scared of who you are, but you don't even know who that is yet. And you do? She was curious, but also concerned. What if this was all in her head and none of it meant anything real? I know you, the wolf said. My mother didn't tell me about any of this, Cassie said. Sitting on the grass in front of the wolf. She didn't want to hurt you. That's not an excuse. Cassie sighed and shook her head. I never got to know my father. I missed a part of myself I'll never get back. That part of you is right here, the wolf said, cocking its head at her. But you have to be strong enough to accept it. What happens if I'm not? Then I will wait until you are. Her eyes flew open and she looked around her. They were still in the car on the way back. Cassie shifted in her seat and Karen turned his head towards her. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Cassie lied. I just fell asleep. We're almost home. They were almost home, almost to his home. Cassie felt more and more like there wasn't a place for her to call home. She could go back to the city, live with her sister at the order, but that meant she'd be right back where everything started. If she was being honest with herself, that was probably where she belonged. Carik is going to be pissed you left without him, Cassie said. Karen glanced at her. There was no reason for him to go. It would have caused more trouble. You keep saying that, but you never say why. Karen shook his head. You're better off not knowing. ING things from her. Things she needed to know to stay alive. I'm so sick of everyone making choices for me. No one is making choices for you, Karen said. Really, you made the Chios for me to leave. You didn't give me a chance to say no. Did you want to stay there? You would be a slave to that pack. And? Cassie snapped. They would use you for whatever Atlas wanted. And you aren't? Karen snapped his head to her. I've never used you for anything. Really? We both know that's not true. Cassie sighed. From the moment you put the pack back together, you wanted to maintain control. That's why you didn't let Carik have it. Karen slammed on the brakes and pulled the car over. He put it in park and turned towards her, anger all over his face. I've never used your power for anything. I became the alpha to protect my pack. If I had my way, you'd be on the way back to New York and never come back. His words stung. Then why haven't you? Carrick's in love with you, he answered. Sure he is. That's why he ended what we had, Cassie said. That's not why he ended it. I know, he wanted to protect me. Cassie crossed her arms. I've already heard it. That's not why he did a goddamn thing, Karen said before pulling the car back out and driving. You're an asshole. Every day of the week. Carik. What the fuck, Karen? He said, flying out of the door and punching him square in the face the moment Karen stepped out of the car. He gave Carik a hard push even after his punch landed right where Carik wanted it to. Karen wasn't walking away without explaining himself. Relax, Carik, he said before stepping past him. She's fine. That's not the point. We were supposed to take her together. I was not going to deal with you and Atlas's nonsense on top of everything else. Karen didn't stop walking until he got to the front door. God, I forgot how hard you can hit. Both of you are getting on my nerves, Cassie said, stepping out of the car. Did you get what you needed? Cassie countered. He felt like he should have went. It didn't matter what happened in the past with her. She needed him and he wasn't there. I should have been there. It's over now. There are bigger things to worry about. Like finding out who walked into my vision and threatened me. What are you talking about? Carik said. You never told me that. When did it happen? A while ago, and no, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd freak out, Cassie sighed. Besides, I was hoping I'd figure it out on my own. These are things you have to tell us, Carik snapped. He felt his anger and need to keep her safe bubble up. He'd held it down so long so he wouldn't have to admit he still cared for her, but maybe that didn't matter. He was the only one that could keep her safe in her visions, but she'd have to let him. Look, Lark is looking into it. She is more keep to figure it out than me unless he walks into my visions again, Cassie said. Okay, but still. We should be talking about this too. Carik glanced at Kirian. Did anything happen while you were with them? You mean did I change? Cassie raised her eyebrow. No. He studied her for a moment. Something felt off. She was great at deflecting, but the way she wouldn't meet his eyes told him something happened. Cassie, you can talk to me. I know things haven't been great between us since you dumped me because you need to keep me safe? She glared at him and he cocked his head. I guess. If that is how you feel, he said. How I feel? She laughed. You are such an asshole. She stormed past him and he didn't say anything as she walked into the house. That's what happens when you can't make up your mind. Brother, Kieran said, walking towards him. He put out his hand and stopped him before he walked past Carik. You're one to talk. I know why you are always so close to her. You think you have a chance. Please, you have no idea. Kieran looked at him and shook his head. You have no clue what I've already given up to keep her safe and to help her get the answers she's looking for. He laughed slightly. What have you done?